Grade 9 English, week 1. The first topic that was done is grammar, participles, and participial phrases. So we have present and past participles. Present participles is usually formed by adding ing, like interest and interesting. Past participles as adjectives is usually formed by adding ed, en, or just a d to the word, as in interest and interested. Present participle ing is used to describe something or someone. I watched an interesting TV about American history last night. This film is boring. In this case, okay, interesting and boring both are adjectives. Past participle, that's with ed, is used to describe how people feel about something or someone. I'm interested in American history. I'm bored of my job. It can be used before the noun it modifies, like an encouraging word, a shocking secret, a worried mother. It can be used in the comparative form. They were more frightened. I'm sorry about that. It can be used in the comparative form. They were more frightened than we were. Ted's final grades were most pleasing. Here are some more examples. The new song is interesting. People are interested in the new song. Interesting as well as interested. Both these are participles that are used as adjectives. Most of the news on TV is depressing. Daniel is really depressed about the news on TV. The first one describes something, all right. The second one, which is the past participle, describes how the person is feeling. The horror movie was frightening, and we were frightened because of the horror movie. Once you have understood participles as adjectives, you can complete the exercises in the grammar booklet. Now we'll move on to participial phrases. Obviously, participial phrases will have the same function. They are also going to function as an adjective. Now, before we start with participial phrases, I'm sure you will remember that we did prepositional phrases, and prepositional phrases that function as adjective phrases and adverb phrases. Now here we need to focus on the word that it modifies to figure out if it is an adjective phrase or an adverb phrase. The same way in a participial phrase, okay, it is going to be a verb. It begins definitely with a verb. That is a participle, but it is functioning as an adjective. Let's have a look at it. So what are they? Now we know a participle is a verb that is used as an adjective and most often ends in ing or ed. Because they function as adjectives, participles modify nouns or pronouns. There are two types of participles, present participles and past participles. Present participles end in ing and past participles end in ed, en, d, t, or n, as in the words asked, eaten, saved, dealt, and seen. A participial phrase consists of a participle plus a modifier, object, and or a complement. Look at the example below. Removing his coat, Jack rushed to the river. The participial phrase functions as an adjective modifying Jack. Removing here is the participial. His coat, a direct object of action that is expressed in the participle. So removing his coat becomes the participial phrase. Now, let me remind you that in a prepositional phrase, okay, the phrase always begins with a preposition and ends with the object of the preposition, which is always a noun or a pronoun. But in the case of a participial phrase, okay, it is not definite that the participial phrase will end with a noun. It can end with another word, another part of speech. Let's look at the second example. Sarah noticed her cousin walking along the shoreline. The participial phrase functions as an adjective modifying cousin. Walking along the cousin. Walking along the shoreline modifies cousin. Walking is the participle. Along the shoreline is the prepositional phrase. Having been a gymnast, James knew the importance of exercise. The participial phrase functions as an adjective modifying James. Having been is the participle and a gymnast, that's the subject complement. Now here, which example is correct and why? Now you need to figure out which one is going to be correct. A participial phrase must be placed as close to the noun it modifies as possible, and the noun must be clearly stated. Carrying a heavy pile of books, his foot caught on a step, or carrying a heavy pile of books, he caught his foot on a step. Which sentence do you think is correct? Now let's pay attention to the punctuation. When a participial phrase begins a sentence, a comma should be placed after the phrase. All right, put commas in the two examples. The first one, arriving at the store, I found that it was closed. Now here, the sentence is introduced by a participial phrase. Arriving at the store, you put a comma. Second example, washing and polishing the car, Frank developed sore muscles. Okay, now let's look at what the participial phrase is. Washing and polishing the car, comma. If the participial phrase comes in the middle of a sentence, it should be separated with commas only if the information is not essential to the meaning of the sentence. Examples, Sid, watching an old movie, drifted in and out of sleep. We can also read the sentence without the participial phrase. Sid drifted in and out of sleep. So this is additional information that is not very important to the meaning of the sentence. The church, destroyed by a fire, was never rebuilt. Destroyed by the fire is the participial phrase. Notice the commas before and after the phrase. Now, because it is giving us additional information, I can even remove it of the sentence and the meaning of the sentence will not change. The church was never rebuilt. If the participial phrase is essential to the meaning of the sentence, no comma should be used. If it is very, very important for the sentence, without which, the sentence has no meaning, that in that case, no comma should be used. The student earning the highest grade point average will receive a special award. Now here, earning the highest grade point average is very important. Otherwise, why will the student receive a special award? The guy wearing the chicken costume is my cousin. So, a quick summary of participles and participial phrases. A participle is a verb ending in ing in case of the present, and ed, end, or t or n in case of the past, that functions as an adjective modifying a noun or pronoun. A participial phrase consists of a participle plus a modifier, object, and or complements. Participles and participial phrases must be placed as close to the noun or pronouns they modify as possible. And those nouns or pronouns must be clearly stated. A participial phrase is set off at commas when it comes at the beginning of a sentence, is not essential information, or comes at the end of a sentence and is separated from the word it modifies. How do we want to use participial phrases? To make our writing more academic and to use a variety of ways to structure sentences. We are going to stop this presentation here. Now, once this is clear to you, you will be attempting the next exercise on participial phrases. We will now move on to the second topic of week 1. So for the second topic of week 1, we did an IELTS listening exercise. The audio for the listening exercise you will find on the MIS portal that will be attached, and you can download the audio. The page numbers for the listening are page 42. The title is Wasting Energy, and the second listening exercise is on page 45. The title is A Case Study of Sao Paulo. We will now move on to week 2. We started with the interactive reader. The name of the lesson is I Have a Dream. We will begin by discussing the essential question. So, I Have a Dream is, of course, from the speech written by Martin Luther King. He he played a very important role in the involvement of the civil rights when related to the African American people. This is the name that was given to the speech that he gave in Washington, D.C., where 250,000 people came and listened to him, how he spoke up in a peaceful manner for the rights of the African American people. Now, we are going to discuss first how we want, or the changes that we want to see in the world right now. So, I Have a Dream, a speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Can a dream change the world? Time and again, someone has a dream or vision of how to make the world a better place. Powerful words can help turn a person's dream into reality. In this speech you are about to read, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. sets forth his vision for the future. What is your vision for a better world? Does it involve better schools, safer communities, cleaner air? Complete the sentence in the notebook at the left for your idea for a better world. in my vision for a better world, and what do you think is for a better world? Maybe you think you want, to work or help towards saving the environment. Maybe you feel equal pay for men and women. Maybe you feel that you want to see something being done for the homeless. Maybe you want to see people fighting for animal rights. So there may be so many issues that you feel for. So whatever it is, you can write your vision here. We'll now move on to what type of text it is that we are studying. Now, what we are studying is an argument. That's the kind of the text it is. We're going to analyze this text. That how do we recognize what type of text it is? The previous one that we did was Who Killed the Iceman and Skeletal Sculptures. That was a non-fiction text, and that's when we did how to identify non-fiction texts. So there'll be titles, there'll be subheadings, there'll be photographs, there will be captions, there could be a timeline, there could be a list of items, there could be procedures that are used in numbered lists or just bullet points. Now, in this case, it's an argument. So, one, what is an argument? Now, sometimes you have an argument with a friend, right? Now, those are just issues, small issues between you and your friend, and it's a verbal argument. But when it's formal, okay, in formal speaking, the argument has a claim. You make a claim, you take a stand on something that is important to you. You may think of an argument as an angry discussion. In formal speaking and writing, however, an argument expresses a position on an issue and supports the position with reasons and evidence. A sound argument includes these elements. So the text must include a claim, the writer or the speaker's position on an issue. Then after the claim, it will have support, the reasons and the evidence that support the claim. In I Have a Dream, King makes this claim about the status of African Americans. But 100 years later, after the Emancipation Proclamation, the Negro is still not free. This is a claim that he makes, and in the speech, he gives the reasons and evidence to support his claim. As we're going to read this speech, we are going to look at this claim that he makes, and we're going to identify the reasons and the evidence that Martin Luther King provides to support it. If you look at this web diagram here, it tells you what is the essential element of an argument. So there's a claim, and the claim is supported by reasons, and each reason there is an evidence given. In the next part of, obviously, we are going to start with the reading skill. Now, the reading skill, we will focus on the rhetorical devices. Now, what are rhetorical devices? So, writers and speakers typically use more than just arguments to persuade. They also use rhetorical devices, techniques to enhance their arguments and communicate more effectively. In the following examples, notice how wording makes the message more memorable. I will just discuss with you a little more on a simpler note what are rhetorical devices and the kinds of rhetorical devices, and then I will come back to this page. So these are some common rhetorical devices that help the text, make the text richer, the language richer, and helps, of course, in case of an argument text, helps it to persuade. One of the rhetorical devices is repetition. The use of the same word, phrase, or sound more than once for emphasis. The main focus of repeating something is to give it importance so that it is emphasized. We did repetition in the raven. Then we have parallelism, the use of similar grammatical constructions to express ideas that are related or of equal importance. Parallelism is repetition, but here it is the repetition of similar grammatical constructions. We will be looking at examples of this as well. Rhetorical questions, questions that need no answer, but because their answers seem obvious. One of the rhetorical devices that we will be studying is the analogy. What is an analogy? An analogy is a kind of extended metaphor or a long simile in which a comparison is made between two things in order to develop a line of reasoning. While it is similar to simile, similes are generally more artistic and brief, while an analogy is longer and explains a thought process. Knowledge always desires increase. It is like fire, which must first be kindled by some external agent, but which will afterwards propagate. And then we have repetition and parallelism. Repetition and parallelism are rhetorical devices in which repeated words or patterns provide rhythm, enhance ideas, and organize complex passages. In the following example, notice the parallel grammatical form noun plus action verb plus the repetition of the one word change create strong rhythms when the text is spoken, cementing the message in the listener's minds. Example: times change, people change, companies change. Have you changed? This is an example of parallelism. We will move back to the text. Let's look at the examples we have in our book to understand this further. Repetition uses the same word or words more than once for emphasis. For example, let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. This example has been taken from Glory and Hope by Nelson Mandela. Look at the phrases that have been repeated. Let there be, let there be, let there be. So this is repetition. Now parallelism uses similar grammatical construction to express ideas that are related or equal in importance. It often creates a rhythm. We cannot, we must not refuse to protect the right of every American to vote in every election. And we ought not, and we cannot, and we must not wait another 8 months before we get a bill. This is from We Shall Overcome by Lyndon Baines Johnson. Look at the highlighted words. We cannot, we must not, we ought not, and we cannot. These phrases, now here the pronoun we has been repeated, and then the modal verbs like can, must, ought. Okay, so here pronoun plus the verb has been repeated. So this is parallelism. Now analogy. Analogies are simple. Analogies like green is to grass, as sky, as blue is to sky. Or let's say hair is to head and as fingers is to hand. So we are comparing things for a similarity. makes a comparison between two subjects that are alike in some ways. Have you heard the canned, frozen, and processed product? What's a canned, frozen, and processed product? It's usually food that is canned, frozen, processed, being dished up to the world. Yep. So this food is given to the, it's like a dish, right? And a lot of people make use of this. So the same way, American popular music today. American popular music, so many different musical instruments come together to form or to create music. A lot of this music is further remixed, correct? Is remixed and served again or given again to the people. So this is the comparison that is being made. There are other PowerPoints that have been uploaded for you to refer to understand the rhetorical devices. So these are the topics that were covered in the first 2 weeks of grade 9 in English.